Hello, and welcome back to How to Connect with Humans. A very special series for us. It is. Um, so this is episode 5, and we are so happy today. It's party. It's like, for me, the one I've been really looking forward to. And so we have a very special guest with us. So we have Susie Spens, and she's going to talk about
speaking our truth.
Yeah, I taught him what to do. And
she's training me.
Yeah, I get that. So Susie is our dear friend, also somebody that I have personally trained together for many years. We met on the first day that we went to do Clarity with Jamie Smart, and we did a year of Clarity, and then we did a year of mentoring, and we happened to be put together to co-mentor. So but on the first day we went together for lunch, and then we realized we came to know about the principles for the first time through Ian Watson, who also is an amazing homeopathy teacher, and he used to work as a homeopath. And Susie's an amazing homeopath, absolutely fantastic. Is my homeopath, our homeopath of the whole family. But I said, if you read the description, that Susie is the sister I chose with my heart. And there's something about Susie, and when she talks about her experience, and when she talks about what this understanding has meant for her life and for other people around her, and that is very, very powerful. My feeling is always when Susie enters the room, the world calms down. That is my feeling. And luckily with Wayne, we feel an amazing, loving connection with Susie.
Yeah.
We have seen each other raw and naked, not really, but and up and down, and highs and lows, and you name it. And is that honesty that Susie brings to the table, where us being new people talking about this understanding, like new voices around this, and how do we feel, and how does it go day by day? So without further ado, we give you Susie Spens. Hello and welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for that beautiful, far too good introduction. I think that was really quite. It's funny when you hear people introduce you. It doesn't sound like yourself at all. Doesn't sound. It's very strange. And maybe that's really what we're talking about. Maybe that's what we're talking about, actually. We're talking. We really want to talk about who we really are underneath all that. That's what's really interesting. Who we are before our identity, or what we've achieved in life, or what we haven't achieved in life. That space before all that. And that's what really draws me, because when we get a feeling for that space, then it becomes so much easier to speak our truth. So much easier. So I'll just because there's a few people on the course. I'll just say a little bit about how I started this. So I grew up as a middle child, with all that involves, in quite a strict household, very loving household, but really quite strict. And I certainly was really meant to be seen and not heard, if at all possible, most of the time. And so grew up with that feeling. But I always saw very clearly that light and that space in other people. You know, I really got that feeling of life, and that there was something more, there's some magic, there's something going on. But when I tried to articulate it, it was very much just sort of ignored or redirected or you know, squashed, really, which is fine. But nevertheless, it was there. I have no idea why this example is coming up, but no idea. But when I was in my teens and going to lots of parties and things, you know, and I remember, you know, I'd end up kissing the odd person, and you know, a day or two later, I'd have like a really sore mouth inside, and I'd be saying that to someone. I'd say, well, how come I've got like scratches, things? And it was basically because maybe the guy I'd been kissing, like wearing a brace, but I never noticed something like that. You know, I just never noticed. And my friend would look at me as I was completely odd, but I never really noticed all the outside stuff. You know, I just connected to the energy within. But I was always searching for something more. I'm sure, like many of us on this call, I explored so many different things, like shamanism and iridology and Biora energy. I did healing for quite a long time, whilst I was doing publishing and film and all that on the side. But you know, I was exploring the energetic world on the side. And then I stumbled on homeopathy in my 30s, which is incredible and life-changing and magic and amazing. But I still hadn't quite found what I was looking for. I was still really struggling to really reflect me to the world. And I remember one of my first loves, when I was with him, he always used to say, you know, he's needing advice on something or chatting or whatever, you know, and I would speak, and he'd say, God, you know, that's so wise, you know, I can't, how did, you know, and afterwards I'd go and think, that was really wise, you know, where did that come from? You know, where did that come from? How it just didn't sound like me at all. And I realize now it was because he was looking at me with such love and seeing the real me underneath, through all the fronts that I was putting up. And when you have someone looking at you like that, when you're held in that space, you're absolutely able to speak your truth. You're absolutely able to say what you feel and speak from the heart. And when you're doing that, you're not really speaking from Susie Spens. You know, you're speaking from this larger energy, this space, this wisdom. Some people call God. It's from Source. But obviously I didn't understand that at the time. So I went on looking, and it was only about 4 years ago when I went to this evening course with Ian Watson, who many of you won't know, but he started talking about this understanding called the Three Principles. And I heard something in it. I just went for a couple of sessions and I heard something and put it away to explore later. And about 6 months later, I kept on getting these messages from Jamie Smart, who's a coach, and started talking to him, and started on this journey. At the same time, my father was very ill. He got bowel cancer, and he was really in the last couple of months of that or so. So I was up and down to Scotland a lot, still exploring this. But when it got to the stage of the last few weeks, the last few days of bowel cancer, which you can imagine is quite challenging, I was still able to be with him 24 hours a day and be completely present. I was able to absolutely tune into who he was. I was able to have fun with him and to laugh. I was able to do all the physical stuff that you have to do right at the end, all the nursing and that sort of thing. And I was able to hold a space for my family who were experiencing all the roller coaster of emotions and dynamics that happens in that sort of situation. And I was able to really know that it was all okay. I was so in the moment, and I could still see that beautiful spark within my father, and see it in myself, and know that was all that mattered. And then following that, I did the memorial service, and I had to get up and speak in about, 150, 200 people for me, which was a massive, massive challenge. But I loved every moment of it, because guess what? I was speaking from my heart again. I didn't have to make anything up. I didn't have to put any front up. I didn't have to worry about what people were saying. I was speaking about someone I loved and wanted to speak the truth and be open and raw and honest. And it was an amazing feeling. And then I did the coaching course with Carolina. And I was still struggling a little bit, because I still had really no idea who I was. Even though I'd had these experiences, I really had no idea, And people go on and on about you have to find your true self. You have to go inside, you have to find your true self. Where is the true self? Where is the true self? I became the flipping poster girl for finding the true self. And it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And then I was called up in front of the room. I volunteered to be coached. And Carolina remembers this, because this went viral on Facebook. And I went up saying something like, I have real problems like receiving compliments. I have problems and I think it's attached to sort of being open and maybe receiving love or money, abundance, that sort of thing. And Jamie was very good at coaching, but I still had this massive wall up. I just couldn't hear it. And as much as I knew I needed to explore inside, really I was just terrified. I didn't know what I'd find. And it felt like there was something very dark and ugly in there. And I realized how much I'd spent in my life just trying to cover it up and push people away and feel I'm not good enough. And, and I know so many people feel like this. And somehow in that session, I got a glimpse of what we're talking about here. I saw that if you really can see this light in other people, and in animals, and in nature, and in poetry, or in giving your kids a bath, or in cooking, or any of this stuff, it's impossible to see it if you have no experience of yourself. You can't see it if that is not what you are yourself. That's just a spiritual fact. And then I went on and onto a retreat with Chip and Jan Chipman, who are these amazing people who just talk about this in such a pure, truthful, authentic, incredible way. And the first moment I heard them talking, I was just, yes, of course, yes. You know, and it's not that they are amazing, but it's not that. It's just that they were speaking to my truth. They were absolutely saying and articulating what I wanted to say, what I wanted to communicate. But I really thought I was nuts up to that stage. I really thought I was nuts. And so from then on, I've just been exploring this further and further and further. But the big difference for me now, I think, is I think growing up, I wasn't really worried about death or anything like that. I was sort of terrified of the void, you know, that space, that chasm, that nothingness, that real feel of being alone, you know, stuck down in the sewers somewhere for 100 years and no one else being around, you know, that sort of existential crisis. That's what terrified me. And now that place is really the only place I want to be. You know, that place of being out of control. Even saying that, I get a bit, but out of control, free, flowing in that place of absolute connection. And if you speak from that place, or you write from that place, or if you hang out with your granny in that place, or if you're walking along the street and you feel the urge to smile at someone and you follow that, that is speaking our truth. And that is the only way, I think, that we can be happy the whole time. In the past, I used to have moments of happiness, absolutely. But now it's my default. I have the odd wonky day and the odd one, but now that is my default. And that's our natural state. That is our natural state. That's how we're all meant to live our lives. And if all of us just manage to nudge in that direction just a tiny bit, just a little bit, just settle back into ourselves, just a tiny bit, that alone would have repercussions around the world. And so I think that's the direction we should all look in. And I've waffled, I feel now. So anyone, you can jump in now.
So beautiful, I think. Well,
such a feeling of delightful meandering, but you know, that's, yeah.
You touch on something really important, what I think we can all talk about, and that feeling of not being good enough, that feeling of you haven't done enough. And this is something that has happened with us.
Yeah.
It's something that has happened between us. And I remember moments where I was really puzzled about what to do, or really upset, or feeling that I never managed to get like 100% what I want, or I don't deserve it. And then I had this look of Susie, or I had this look of from Wayne, going like, what are you talking about? That is the look. It's the look of somebody seeing that. It's like if I say, well, if I had a nose, if I had a nose, I would smell beautiful things and I could do something. If I had a nose like you do, and what you guys have been doing is going just like pointing and going, well, your problem is not that you don't have a nose, it's that you can't say it. And I have the same experience looking at Susie and her going like, well, I don't think I'm good enough. It's like the introduction was too good, it wasn't. It's like, I don't have enough, we don't have enough words.
No, we don't.
But I think I would like to hear what you feel about that area of when did that start being different from you, of like being good enough, not being good enough?
I think for me it was, and I've discussed this many times before, but for me it was realising, because I've got cerebral palsy, realising that I'm not my disability. And from the moment I was born, I was told I wouldn't be able to walk, I wouldn't be able to talk, I wouldn't be able to sit up, I wouldn't be able to eat solid foods ever. And just defining the odds, but then not believing it now. Like, it's only been recently that I've came across this understanding, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not my disability. The true me is not my disability. And it's powerful. It's powerful, and it's also scary to start off with, because everything you've built up and you've thought you are isn't true. And to drop that thought that you've had for so long is scary, but once you go to that place of unknown, that's where the beauty is. That's where you are your true self, and where you can speak from your true self.
Yeah, that's so Wayne, that's gorgeous. It's just reminding me of coming up to this call. This is the first time I've done something like this, so I was having the old butterflies and laughing at myself. I can laugh at myself now, but I was still getting them. And then I just remembered that, of course, it's not actually about me. It doesn't have to be about me, because if I'm going to turn up and speak from the heart, then it's not really going to be me speaking anyway. It's going to be the universe coming up in me and connecting with all you guys on the call. And if I'm speaking to your heart, then it's then going to come back up through your hearts, and really, yeah, I'm going to be speaking to myself, basically. Really, it's nothing to do with me at all. And so that, that's, yeah, it takes it all away. It takes all that identity away. And it's just sort of the universe balancing itself out, rebalancing itself, you know, brushing out the ripples.
Has there been a particular moment for you where, because I think it happened for all of us and still happens, where you were like, this sounds like a really good idea, but you know, there are exceptions to this, you know, understanding, and there have been a moment when you went like, oh, this is how it works 100%. This is how I feel. Was there like a turning point for you, or was like a progressive sort of situation?
Well, I think we all know this, right? You know, from the moment we're born, and obviously before that, you know, we all know this. We just don't trust it, or we suppress it, or we ignore it, or we go, yeah, I'll explore that sometime later. You know, it's there, tap, tap, tapping, but you're not giving it enough time. And so coming across the 3 principles for me was just a useful way for me to articulate it. I think it sort of mirrored what I was feeling, and that's what it is. I'm not saying that the 3 principles is the only way to explore this at all. It's just pointing towards the truth, pointing to who we are. There certainly was a time out in Tenerife on one of these retreats when Chipman was talking somehow so powerfully, and he was saying something like, you know, when you look in this direction, it can, you know, something shifts. You know, he was saying, and it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world. You know, and he was really going at it with fire and brimstone, and I was sitting there just, you know, just like tears streaming down my cheeks. And then him leaving and me feeling this real terror, like I was on a precipice. I was like on a precipice, holding on with my fingers on the edge, you know, still desperately trying to hold on to control, basically, you know. And I was so angry. I was feeling really angry. And I went around the whole of the hotel trying to find him, you know, wanting to say, you know, if I'm going to believe this, then you better be right. You know, you better be right. And of course, it's not about belief, and you have to find it in yourself. And, you know, and luckily I didn't find him. And by the time the next morning came, it had all sort of settled down. And I remember just sort of hearing, just let it be, Susie. Just let it be, let it go, you know. And I settled back down, and because of course, none of this can ever come from someone else. It's just sometimes listening to people helps you to hear something in yourself, you know, and that's what it does. But yeah, that was quite a key moment, I think, of me letting go, because that's what it is letting go on all our preconceptions and ideas and conditioning and experiences and all that. But, you know, I'm still learning the whole time, every day, the whole time, of course, every day. And I doubt it every day in some form or another, but never to such a huge degree. And even when I am in massive doubt mode, there's still that quiet little knowledge inside that really knows. I really know, you know. I never go into such depths of questioning or depression that I used to, and certainly come out of it much quicker. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you mentioned that it's not like 100% all the time. Like, in a way, it's like, yeah, there are moments I have the same, and you have the same.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, it's all very nice, but now this looks like an exception. And same thing, something inside of me still, even if it's like a tiny, tiny little something there, knows that. And I think that is what calmed me down in terms of stop looking for something else. And as you said also very beautifully, like, we are talking about the three principles discovered by Sid Banks and how he sort of expressed what he saw, but we could call it this, we could call it whatever else, as far as you find something that makes you live your life better, and so it's not about stopping, like not progressing in life. It's like that thing that we probably all felt at some point, that we keep looking for books of self-help. There's something else that you're supposed to keep doing to calm down something in you that doesn't seem to find home. And when we find it, and you don't have to go anywhere else looking for it. And I think that's why I'm so thankful. One of the reasons I'm so thankful about this, because it calmed me down. As you said, I saw that I wasn't a freak. I thought that I wasn't mentally ill. I wasn't crazy. I saw that I was fine. I saw that everybody else was fine. And the first time I saw Wayne, he crossed the door of a friend's house, and he opened the door, came in. And when I saw him, I thought, I love him. I didn't see his tics, I didn't see his cerebral palsy, I didn't see absolutely anything, but there was something that I don't know if I would have seen him. I didn't do anything. There was something in me that went like, because this in paper wouldn't have worked at all. Like, if I honestly, like, the next day I just went to see one of my friends and were like, I'm going crazy. I just lost it. I'm like, please stop me. And so also there's nearly 20 years between us. So he's very old and I'm very young. No, something like that. But
there really isn't 20 years between you, is there?
It's 19 and a half, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'm 51, and you, it's your bedtime, and no, but honestly, like this, I thought I lost what you were saying, Susie, about losing control, but in a good way. Like what you put together in beliefs of life should go this way, and that's what I should be doing. And so everything for us was like in the wrong time, the wrong place, that should not have worked. And we just took the time to know each other.
Yeah. And here we are 7 years later. And for me, I like what Chipman says with Jan, that he literally sees her every single day and falls in love again. Because that's exactly how I feel. Now, there's days where I do kind of get in my head and kind of do lose that, but there's also days where I'm really overfilling with love. Like today, it's just, I can't put it into words how much love I've received from everyone, and it's incredible. Just, you know, as you say, on paper we weren't supposed to work, but there's just a connection, and I think that's it.
Yeah, and that's the title of your series, isn't it? Connected with Humans.
Yeah.
I love that. I had something on the tip of my tongue I was going to say, and I was listening so deeply to you, I've now forgotten it, which is a good thing. Yeah, it's completely gone, but yeah, it's so interesting, that, isn't it? For those of you who don't know the couple we're talking about, it's Jan and Chipman who explore this. And they've been married for 51 years, and when they first discovered this, they were sort of at the brink and heading towards divorce. And genuinely every day now, they look at each other anew. You know, they generally say they feel they don't know each other. They generally don't. I go, oh my God, every day they discover something new, because their minds are not crowded by all the thoughts and memories and past experiences. That's the way I see it. You know, they're just there, fresh, open to see what happens. So it's like they're falling in love, like you are when you first fall in love. Do you think we should open this up to some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I was having the same feeling.
Because I know that we're talking about something of 3 principles, but it's sort of universal.
Yeah, so, totally. Yeah. So we are going to not unmute, but let people unmute themselves if they want to. And hello. So Savannah, did you unmute yourself, or did we?
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
That
was really interesting. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed listening to you. Brought a little tear to my eye, Wayne, when you told me your part. So it was really, really lovely. And yeah, it's when Susie sent me the invite to this, I've just recently qualified as a nutritionist, and it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of mental health and acceptance and the whole thing that comes with it. So I'm, every day there's something else that comes my way that seems to show me that this is the way forward, and like shedding all of the matter that you've carried through the years that have made you make other decisions, that have made you go down the per se wrong path, etc. And yeah, it was just really interesting to hear other people exploring a concept that I'm also very keen on, per se.
Yeah, I remember. I think when I last saw you, were you reading the Surrender Experiment?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is it's all the same thing. It's just surrendering, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is, and surrender is such a kind of, I don't know. It feels like a passive word sometimes, but it's actually not. Like when you were saying earlier, Susie, like I'm absolutely filled with dread, like surrendering, letting go. You know, we all say, "Oh, just let go," but it's a really big thing. You know, so yeah, it's an interesting one to look at. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when I was just talking about that experience when I was sort of on the edge of the precipice, terrified. I think it was sort of like a fear of being happy. I think, it's like, oh my God, what if I allow myself to be happy, to feel that joy? And that's sort of terrifying, because then you're free falling,
Or do you think because you get a taste of it and then you can't quite keep it,
Because you're trying to control, even then you're trying to control it.
Kind of like, okay, it comes in this box, so that's what I want, and then your destination happiness over here, and then it's over there, and then, yeah, so, yeah, it goes back to the same thing, letting go, constantly reminding yourself to, yeah.
Yeah. And letting go is actually just settling back into yourself, you know, like, you know, we talk about waves on an ocean. It's just that, you know, you're coming up like with whatever you're doing, or fear, whatever feeling you're experiencing, and then you can just settle back down, back into the happiness or the peace or the joy, which is we are innately.
Thank you, Savannah. It was lovely. I think Anna had Anna, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question, but I really appreciated. It's interesting how it's the stories we tell ourselves. You know, the stories we think we need to live up to. You know, and Susie, you got to share so many beautiful stories, and some were, you know, of your childhood and of your father and of the things that your life wove you through, you know, and each one of those stories help you to see yourself. And I thought that was so beautiful that each one of them were there to help you accept that true self.
Yeah. Life is a contact sport, don't they? Life is a contact sport. That's what the song is, you know. But it's good.
So we're here to have that human experience, and those stories are those people, those events. We're all part of it, you know. You know, we can look back and say, well, what if I didn't have to have gone through that, or what, you know, why was that this way? But it's not about looking back, it's about being present. And I think that's what you're living. I think it's awesome. You're being present in the moment. And that's a wonderful example for each one of us.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know that we can. Sorry, I don't know if something's gone funny, but we don't know if we can. You know, we don't realize that whatever's gone on in the past, we're still able to turn up like fresh, clean souls. You know, we're not actually damaged in any way by anything that's gone before. And that's massive. You know, that's huge. And in that sense, you know, of course we don't need to regret anything. And it also doesn't matter at what stage of life that we start to get a feel for this either, you know. If it happens in like the last 5 seconds before we leave this world, it's sort of irrelevant. Because you know, when you have that experience, everything else just dissolves. The past doesn't matter because it's only here and now that matters.
Thank you, Anna, for that. That was really, really beautiful. We have Lee that's put his hand up. So I'm going to unmute you, Lee.
I'm
Hi,
muting
Lee.
myself. Playing mute table tennis, right? Yeah, I do have a question. I'll lead up to it. I had an experience this week, or yesterday, in fact, and it was the weirdest thing because I moved. I live in Florida now. I used to live in England, and in a sense, I've learned, and I was a quote unquote self quote unquote expert in psychology because I was an NLP trainer and I did all the psychology and so on. Goes on and on. In England, I moved to Florida, and then I was reintroduced because I heard about 3P ages ago, sort of put it in my NLP toolkit, not realizing there's a massive difference there. What happened this week was that I had a call from one of my parents, and I won't go into major detail, but suddenly a gestalt, you know what I mean by a gestalt? Like just a mass of thoughts going all the way back to, my childhood, right? So it just happened really, really quickly. I saw it in vivid color, what was going on. And what was amazing was I was fascinated by it. Instead of, in the past, I would have gone through the whole lot and tried to figure out, I wouldn't have been talking to you now because I'd have been figuring this stuff out. I'd have been working on it, and I'd have had books everywhere and journals everywhere. And I was just so fascinated by it. It was like, wow. And I'm going to use the wrong terminology, but it was like, oh my gosh, these feelings and these beliefs, again, followed me, That's how it felt. It's like, how'd you find me? I moved to Florida, for crying out loud. It's like, get me. I didn't leave a forwarding address. But again, the beauty of it was, through this understanding was, I didn't collapse. I didn't go into a depression. Which I have done, in my life. I did not collapse as a consequence of this. I do have a question, because earlier I was listening to someone who was in the non-duality type world, and I've been looking into that, and I think I have to come back to the 3 principles. It gets too complicated. And he was talking about, and also Eckhart Tolle talks about this, like the pain body, so that these formulation of thoughts and beliefs that I was talking about, to their understanding, is within the body. So there is, as I say, a gestalt, so there is a connection there. And the idea is to go into that connection and experience that connection. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm not saying this is right. I'm just curious as to know what your take is on that. I know I've heard that a beautiful line, I think it was Michael Neal, who said that there's no difference between my life is over and I want to kill myself and I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. And that was huge. And I'm a wannabe believer in that. You get my question? I'm a wannabe believer. Do you believe that, let's say? Is there any merit in going into this, as I can't remember the lady's name previous who said the story. Obviously, it's not so much going into the story, but is there any merit in all of those beliefs, all of those values, all of those going all the way back through history? Or is it just the same as getting annoyed because you spilled coffee?
So you're first of all, no, I don't believe there's any. I believe there is no difference between one thought and another. Yeah, I do believe that. And you're asking, is there any point in going back and exploring? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's no right and wrong rules to this. You know, there's no right and wrong words. You can do whatever you want, obviously, and you know, trust yourself always before what anyone else is saying to you. Having said that, well, for instance, I've always sort of wanted to write. You know, I've always had that burning thing inside me, and writing a bit, journaling a bit here. You know, never really allowing myself to properly. And I was speaking to someone the other day, working with Anna and someone else actually, and she basically told me just to set aside a couple of hours a week just for writing. It was great, very good coaching advice, very good, you know. But what I felt after that was that somehow she'd given me permission to write and have fun, and I was jumping over the moon. I was so happy, you know. Somehow I felt that I needed permission to allow myself to write and enjoy it, you know. And I could have gone down 10 million rabbit holes trying to work out where that came from. But the fact is, it was just ridiculous, you know. When it's something simple like that, you can see it's just ridiculous. Wherever it came from, it's not real. You know, I've got it from somewhere. Yeah, sure, I've got it from somewhere, from my upbringing or something in my genes, or I mean, who knows? But if I can see through it and see that it's ridiculous, then it's much easier to let it go.
Yeah. So it wasn't in the, okay, so I have this, let's go through the history and try and get to the root cause of it. It was, oh, that was ridiculous. End of.
It was for me, you know, it was for me. That's a simple example, obviously. But the fact is, we're never, ever, ever damaged innately from our past. You know that what we were talking about, that golden spark inside of you, who you are, the essence of who you are, is never, ever, ever damaged. So you may have some memory in your cells of some experience, but when you start to see that, it just sort of becomes irrelevant, and you realize you're stronger than that, and it just slowly starts to disappear. And when it comes to the non-duality, it's not really any difference to what we're talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
I know there's a little bit of kerfuffle going on at the moment, but it's absolutely still pointing to the same direction. That's all. Yeah. And the 3 principles is just a helpful step in that direction, but we're all saying the same thing, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the 3 principles is a simplified version. So it just simplifies it so much that, hey, you don't have to think about it, right? Yeah. I love that. I've got one question, just a personal opinion. What is our personality? Because if we've made everything up, how do we know what our personality is? I give you really easy questions.
No. I mean, our personality is an illusion.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we can go right back to the beginning. I mean, I'm using Sid Banks here because some of us on this call know about the 3 principles, but it was started by this guy, Sid Banks, who literally was very shy, thought he was very shy. A friend asked him to a party and he said, no, I can't go to parties. I'm very shy. I find it very difficult. I'm very shy. And his friend turned around to him and said, Sid, you're not shy. You just think you are. You know, and for some reason, Sid heard that on a very, very, very deep level and realized how true it was. And that it was created this, it all come from some belief, from some experience, and it built and built and built. And as soon as he realized that, it fell away. And the next day he went to a party and you know, he never, you know, that was it. Stopped believing he was shy. And that's, you can use that example in any area. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
I would follow that up by saying, I do believe we all have a very special gift to give to this world individually. You know, I do think that our experiences we have in order to evolve in a certain way, and as a result of that, we're probably going to contribute to the world in a different way to the person next to us. So there's a point to our personality in a way, but it's transient and doesn't exist. You know?
Right.
I might stop now. I feel I'm digging myself into holes, but you know what I'm pointing.
I think great. I think it's great. Absolutely, makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you,
Lee. I absolutely love those questions.
Me too.
Yeah.
After you. I think for me, on your question about personality, I had a coaching session once with a name called Jan Chipman, who we had on last week, and she asked me, or no, she turned around to me, sorry, and said, "Who is Wayne?" And for me, we were having calls once a week, and I literally went away and pondered it for a week. And at one point, I got really annoyed, really angry, and was like, "I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not having any more sessions." Okay. And I went into the next call and I said, "Look, I'm getting really angry." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because what you basically said is like, I'm not me." And then she clarified and went, "No, what I've actually pointed you to is that you can be anyone you want to be, moment to moment. Right. So I can be me today, but the me today isn't set in concrete." And I think for me, that was probably one of the biggest things that really helped.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Yeah, I love that. You know, that makes me think. It's just like, because I'm like 106, and you know, I think I'm completely different now to when I was in my 20s or my 30s. So yeah, that really does resonate. That's a great question, isn't it? Yeah. If you want to annoy somebody.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm really curious about, you know, when you said, like, with your previous question, like when you were saying, I would have been there still today, going through all those thoughts about the past and my family and my parents. And so I'm curious to know what changed, because you said I wouldn't be here if I haven't stopped. I will still be digging and finding and thinking. So what changed for you?
I was like many people, I was a self-help junkie. I mean, I was just absolutely, I had to get to the root of everything. And what changed is the umbrella of 3P. I realized, you know, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, because it sometimes gets in the way. You know, I'm thinking psychologically about something. And realizing with 3P, just like I said about that, There's no difference between me spilling a coffee and getting annoyed, or thinking about some major trauma that happened in my childhood. The only difference is the meaning that we give it. And I realized, and believe me, when I say realized, I don't mean, oh, there you go. I mean, I'm like fighting myself to stop going into the psychology of it all. However, there was a feeling, and that's to answer your question, because I love the question that you said. There was a feeling there. There was a feeling of, I'm okay. Whereas previous that wouldn't have been there. And I'd have had to find the answer in order to be okay, rather than just being okay. So that was a major, major, major difference. And as a consequence, I'm not stuck in all the books and the, trying to, I'd have charts up and all sorts. I'm an analyst. Yeah. So all of that, I wouldn't say is gone. I'm sort of still, allowing to keep letting it go. But really, that was such a huge difference. And today I'm fine about it all. Whereas, again, wrong terminology, but I know that in the past, with all the quote unquote credentials, I would have probably fallen into a sadness if not, I wouldn't have gone into a depression because I know how to get out of that, but I would have been heading in that direction. And today I'm I wouldn't say the opposite, but I'm okay with it. I'm absolutely okay. And that's huge. That's absolutely huge. So.
Thank you for sharing that. That is huge, absolutely huge.
I'm going to ponder your question that you had got answered now, because I'm thinking, okay, that's me for the week. Who is Lee?
Well, I
Yeah.
love because I when you were talking about personality, and I like to think, I have this belief that I am the kind of person that should have things done. And I am sure, like, we're all in this one, and Susie is one of the specialists on getting things perfectly done. So we are supposed to get things perfectly done. That's the kind of person I think I am. I made that up.
Oh.
I can let it go wherever I want. I made that up. That I should analyze and go and dissect something until I have the answer. And it makes sense, because with a lot of things, it makes sense. So if this telephone doesn't work and Wayne goes into it until he finds why it doesn't work, then it starts working. Mm-hmm. So that works. But I learned to believe, because also I had many, many years of psychotherapy, that the more I went back into searching and finding and digesting and understanding into my past experiences, then something will release and give me peace. And the thing is that when I have those moments during psychological therapy, what did it was an insight that came from me. Not because of going into the past and digging and wondering, and because the only reason, and I understand what you're saying, the only reason I'm not that bothered when the coffee spills, that when some of my thoughts from the past come back, is because I don't want them to come back. I suffer too much when they come back. So I want to find some way of them going away, not staying for that long, because the spill of the coffee I can clean with a cloth. Okay. I know I've got resources to deal with the spill of the coffee. Well, it seems I don't have enough resources to stop being haunted by my past coming back. Now, when I have that sort of thinking, I tell myself, and this is not a prescription, I tell myself, Carolina, is like squeezing a piece of glass in your hand. You can keep squeezing and it hurts more. Or you can just see that you are innocently relieving things, thinking there will be an answer there, but the answer is not there. And that helps me. And I don't know if this answers any of your questions in any way, but that's
oh yeah, very hard. Yeah, thank you both, thank you, all three of you. I really appreciate that. It's a great conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's beautiful. It's amazing.
Always the best conversation. So thank you.
I just wanted to say hi to everybody. And hi, it's great to see you guys again. And I just recently met Susie in one of Sharon's programs. And I've been loving everything that I'm hearing today. It's been really amazing. And I resonate with so much of it. You know, I also had so many feelings of not being good enough and identifying with my so-called diagnoses that I've had in the past. And after coming across the principles, realized that I am not that, and I am not those diagnoses. And like Wayne said, he could be anything he wants to be. We're infinite potential. And we go on this journey seeking for something only to realize that we are that thing that we're looking for, you know? And it's so beautiful when you really realize that, you know, that peace and that joy and that love, that's who we are. And, you know, sometimes it takes going through many things, as I did and many of you have, to get to realize that. And I also went through a lot of therapy and dug into my, you know, dysfunctional family and upbringing and all of that. And I did it for a lot of years, and it didn't help me at all to go down that rabbit hole, you know. And then coming across the principles, and it's been such a blessing in so many ways. Changed my life completely. And also the joy of just connecting with so many beautiful people like yourselves, you know? So, and I was just wondering, Lee, where are you in Florida? Because you look like you could be in my backyard.
Hey.
What part of Florida are you in?
I'm in Delray Beach.
Okay, so I'm in Sunny Isles, not too far. You're like a little
Where are you,
further.
sorry?
Sunny Isles.
Oh, Sunny Isles.
Just a little south of Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. So it's been such a pleasure to hear all of you speaking. Wanted to say thank you.
It's lovely to hear you, Essie. Lovely to hear you. Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that yeah, there's certainly no problem with anyone feeling their feelings. Sometimes I think it's easy to get the wrong impression about that, you know. Yeah, I mean, you know, we're not saying, and this is not, I'm talking to you, Essie, I'm not talking to you. I'm just saying, you know, it's you know, it's really fun to go back into our past sometimes, you know, and explore stories and memories, and there are some amazing feelings there and some more challenging feelings there. And that's really okay. And in the moment, it's really okay to feel our feelings. That's what being alive is. That's what being in the moment is. But it's just helpful to know that those feelings just arise in us and will go again, and they don't have to define us. Well, they don't define us, basically.
Right. It's all part of the human experience.
Yeah. So even when you're really, really, really in it,
Yeah.
still that quiet little whisper now that sort of knows that it'll pass and it won't go on forever.
So I have a question. What if you're in a really good place in your life and somebody really close to you is in a really bad place? And it's really hard when you love somebody to see them like that. And you want to help them so badly, but you know it's an inside job. And you can only point people in this direction, and then, you know, they have to kind of search and do it for themselves and have their own insights. So what would you say is the most, you know, of course, like holding space for people and loving them, you know, of course, and allowing them to be where they are. But if they don't take action, you know, like what would be like your advice for that, especially if it's somebody very close to you?
Yeah, and they're the most difficult ones, right? They really are. Yeah, it's so challenging. However, I would say never underestimate the power of seeing who they are, of knowing who they are. You know, it is so powerful, you looking at this person with love and seeing that love inside them, seeing them as healthy and okay, whatever they're experiencing. It is so powerful. We underestimate it. You know, it's easy to see with children. Maybe you could see, you know, with teachers and children, if teachers believe in a child, you can see them blossom, and that seems obvious to us. But it's exactly the same thing that we're talking about here, you know. And if you see that love in someone else, it literally comes out to meet you. You know, and if they feel that, you know, if they see you all worried and anxious about them, desperate to try and fix them and help them, you know, then they feel, oh, you know, I must really need helping. This, you know, I must be in a really bad way, you know. But if you're calm and loving and relaxed and centered around them, seeing them as whole and healthy, then it's a whole different energy. And it almost gives them the space to start to tune into themselves as well, you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I really, you know, I've had problems with my son who's experienced a lot of anxiety in the past. It got quite bad. And, you know, you try 100 things. And it was only really when I started just letting it, leaving it alone, you know, and just seeing him as innately healthy, regardless of however he was turning up in every situation. You know, when I just stopped, it's that thing of stopping trying to fix people, which is so tempting because we care so much.
I know.
But they're okay already underneath, you know.
Yeah.
They're okay.
Yeah. It's really hard because, yeah, you know, when it comes to our children, we would do anything to make them happy. And it's hard to see them unhappy, you know. But I mean, thank God for this understanding. It does make it easier because we know they're okay. But then the mother instinct comes in, and you just don't want to see them suffering. You know, and it's been a difficult time for everybody with this pandemic. And my children are far away. They're in California and I'm in Florida.
Right.
So it's especially hard, not able to be with them and them going through this, you know, kind of stuck in a room working out of their house and going through a difficult time, and yeah, it's hard.
How are they doing?
Yeah, my son is having a bit of a hard time, so we're finally going to go see them in July. But yeah, like it's really hard that he calls and he's, by himself in California, working out of a room, no family around, first job,
It's tough.
Yeah, it's hard. And, there's a lot of fear, especially if you watch any media, any news media, whatever, it's a fearful time. And we've always been a very close family. And so, his first time away from home and now this, and before I would just like get on a plane and just go be with him. And I haven't been able to do that. So I haven't seen him since December.
Yeah.
It's been difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And it is difficult. That there's no denying that.
Yeah.
But again, you can come on the phone each time you speak to him completely new without all that baggage,
Yeah.
like just turning up to hang out with him.
Yeah.
And not presuming that he's going to be in a really difficult state or it's going to be a hard phone call, or, just turning up and just be there. It's just hanging out, it's just like going back to going and being with my father in hospital. It's so difficult, but the best thing you can do for them is just turning up as yourself with nothing on your mind.
Yeah, that's true. Because sometimes we get in our heads about wanting so badly to help that we're not helping because we have all this on our minds,
Well, also then you can't hear that intuition, so you can't be guided in the moment if you've got all that stuff going on,
Yeah.
That's the thing, you can't listen to yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, we all need it. Lovely to see you.
You too.
I see that is. Thank you for sharing that. You had us in tears because we just really touches home for certain things that are happening, that have been happening. I don't know if you have something you want to say.
I think it's like what Susie said, you've just got to just love them no matter what. And I love it when Susie said just show up completely free of any idea of how the call's going to go. And because we would all normally go into, oh my God, this is going to be such a hard call. What about if he's like this? What about if? What if? And it's so beautiful to hear that you can let that go and have such a deep call and then have that intuition to just know what to say or not, and just be in that feeling with that person.
And most importantly, I feel like not try to fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, when most of the time when I hear people telling me, like, just see that they are fine, just see that they are, or even when I tell this to people, and I just go like, I can't see that. I mean, it's become maybe now and then that I can't actually see it. But when the people I love are suffering, that are very close to me, I can't see it. Not for love or money. All I see is that they're suffering, they have a good reason to be suffering, or they are being difficult, or, you know, and that's all I see. And then I remember Jamie Smart actually talking to me about this, and he said something on the lines of, the thing, Caroline, is that you want them to stop suffering because you are suffering. You don't know what their experience is. So it's not about you. It's about them. So when you get present and Izzy just looking at you, and that your presence, your beautiful face, you're all what we're talking about is just there, right? So again, don't underestimate the presence of you. And if you have a conversation where you can't see that they're fine and you're struggling because you're suffering with them, just trust that your presence is enough. And that if when we're trying to fix them or change them, it's because obviously we don't want them to suffer. Yeah. But the urgency is because we are suffering. And it's like, you're really, you know, whatever, but stop suffering, you know. I'll do whatever, but just stop suffering. It's just, and that stops us from getting curious about what the experience of their moment of their life, or it's that day for them, or is in that moment for them, or even, I'm sure that you can spend days or whatever, or hours without talking to the person that is suffering, but you're suffering because you think they're suffering. Yeah, you could be at home watching telly and or do whatever, reading a book or go for a walk, having a great time, and you're still suffering because you think they're suffering. Yeah, right.
It's true. And we have like a kind of joke in my house where my husband gets all the fun phone calls and I get all the mommy, you know, problem phone calls, you know. And I'm like, it's so not fair. I get all the problem phone calls and you get all the happy phone calls, you know. And I have to remind myself that sometimes with my children, they're thinking out loud to me. And we know how thought works. And it's fleeting, you know, and they believe it in the moment. And then I'll call my daughter and I'll say, have you talked to your brother lately? Because he doesn't sound really good. And then she'll text me back, he's fine, you know? And I'm sitting here all worried about him, you know? But when he talks to her, he's fine. It's just like he wants, you know, like I think it's the mommy thing, you know? Like they vent to the mommy, you know? And then I carry it with me because I'm his mommy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost actually, it's them purging themselves, you know, it's them clearing their head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking it on you.
Yeah.
Which is fine, you know. But it's actually, it's sort of a healthy from their point of view. But
it's an honor actually that he trusts me.
Yeah.
To allow me to hear him out, you know, that he vents to me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to be listened to and amazing to be heard, you know. Yeah. It's just what you do with it after that. That's the insight. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm conscious of time, and Susie, you've been incredibly generous and amazing to have here. And I don't know if there's any other questions or anything else that Susie would like to say. Oh, Sarah's here. Yeah, there you go, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello, Sarah.
I wanted to share something with you all from what I've just been hearing, especially from Essie. I'm in the south of France, and recently a friend called me, hello, and said that they had a friend staying with them who was very sad and going through a very hard moment in his life because he had a deception with I'm used to speaking French, so sometimes my words don't come, but he had was going through a very hard time with the separation, and everything was coming to a head, and he was very depressed, and he called me and said, "Can I call you?" And I said yes, and I tried to help him to maybe see different people, and he was trying to get better. And on Sunday he called me. I had a message the night before saying, "Please, can I speak with you?" And I called the next day and he was crying, and I thought, I can't leave him. I need to go there. And it was just with my heart. I had to go and help him. And I called a friend of mine and I said, "Can you come with me?" And we just went there, and we went up into the mountains where he was. And we said, we're just going to listen to him. So we listened, and he spoke, and he cried, and we just listened, and we were just in that energy you've been talking about. We're listening with our hearts. He's someone I don't know very well, so it's not family. So it's a little bit different, but it's the same at the same time, just listening with our hearts. And then we spoke of our own sufferings, of things that we'd been through, that we'd lived similar things. And we maybe talked for an hour and a half, and then we left. And on the way home, we said, let's think about him at the same time, and let's send him love and courage and peace. And so I said, yes, let's do that. And I forgot. But when I went to bed, I saw him as a child. I just held him. And the next day, his friend called me and said, "I found my friend again. He's changed. Before he wasn't talking, he wasn't saying anything. And he said something's changed." And I just think it's from what all you are all talking about. It just came from the heart. And I just wanted to share that with you.
Sarah, that's so beautiful. I feel such love for Sarah. I've known since I was 11, I think, and it's just the most amazing thing to have her on this call. It's so gorgeous. And what I love there is that you just showed so beautifully how there's no rules around this at all. You know, it's just acting in the moment and following your instinct and intuition, and you're always going to be guided.
Exactly.
To do what needs to be done and to help in the best way possible.
From this story, I'm telling you, I never used my mind. I was just in this. It's like my head was not, I wasn't using my mind, or even, everything was just from what you're talking about. So if I do use my mind to think about it, then I'm not surprised, because everything was just being in that inner true self. And when you're true to someone, even if he's far away and he's suffering, he connected to it and something changed. And I wanted to share this story because this is someone I don't know, and it's hard when you're with family, because as you say, you're suffering as well. Where here I wasn't suffering myself, but I knew I had to go. I was pulled there. I was pulled by something as a human. I can't, if someone asks for help, I can't shut the door. Sometimes I may not be available, but, and being able to think also about someone with other people at the same time, it's so powerful. So it was, it's there's never a, what's the word? There's never, things don't happen for I'm finding it hard to find my words. There is no, y a pas d'hasard dans le monde. How do you say? There's no, things happen for a reason. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. And this happened 2 days ago. The consequences, and yeah, it's wonderful to be with you all.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So beautiful, and it just shows that we all have what we need in the moment. We just listen. We're powerful enough to do whatever needs to be done.
Thank you, Sarah, and that absolutely defines why we started this series. And call it what you want to call it. All we wanted to do is find ways of opening our heart and connecting with other people and just being available. And the beautiful thing is, like Susie today, we have, and all of you, we have different voices to talk about that, and to see how, you know, you can just go and open your heart to somebody you don't know, because you just feel the same passion, and your heart takes you to, like, it doesn't matter if it's your kid or if it's your neighbor, if it's somebody you don't know. We just feel we are all part of each other. And
we're all one.
Anyway. And I have to say, like, if there's something that Susie brought for us to, and especially helping me, which ends up helping Wayne, that for so many years we wanted to do something, we wanted to start something, we wanted to, and we couldn't get through with it. And then Susie just very kindly, and as you were saying, like with your friend, well, with this person you didn't know, but you know, like with this patience and calmness and her huge heart, just waited for us to be ready and for me to be ready. And she's a huge part of this series happening, because one day I got up and I said, we're doing this. And we did it. And here we are. So, like that hug that you went to, gave this person. So Susie's been our hug. And we can't thank you enough. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for supporting us, and for being the beautiful self you are.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm getting to that stage where I can't take any more, so you better stop. It's been an honor to be here. It's been an honor to be on your call, and you did it all yourself, both of you. I just nudged it a little bit from time to time, but it came. And thank you everybody for being here on quite a long call. So thank you for hanging out. It's been gorgeous. And enjoy the rest of your evening. Yeah, it's probably time for supper for many people.
Yeah.
Or something else for others.
Yeah, sorry, what's going to.
Thank you both for having this. It was a wonderful conversation. Very, very connective. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And those people that have to go, and they said thank you very much, and they left messages on the chat if you want to have a look. And so thank you all for staying here for this long as well. Next week we are also doing it on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We try to sort of change the date so people that can't do it on one day can do it on another day. So it's 6 o'clock UK time, so that is BST, so exactly like today on the Wednesday. And we are going to have Jackie Ford. And Jackie Ford is somebody we met many years ago. She's from Scotland. She's a powerhouse. That woman can get things done. It doesn't matter what has whatever comes across her. Now, this wasn't the kind of person she used to be, as she describes herself. So she used to be very shy, and she used to be a nurse, and she used to find things very difficult, and she used to look for self-help and bought pretty much every book, everything, went to do NLP and hypnotherapy and many things. And then one day she found the principles, and since then she's been helping people for the last 30 years, and she has her own company from the last 10 years. And not only she changed her life around, she's also brought this to the government in Scotland. She's doing a lot of work with companies, with, you name it really, because she's been everywhere doing tons of things. But one of the main things, at some point, she just decided to call a lot of the people like that have been around the principles for a long time, got them all to Scotland and said, okay, we're going to go and talk to the government. So, and they did. And from that, other things sort of started happening. So we're going to have the incredible Jackie Ford next week. And please join us if you can. And well, really looking forward to what the future brings. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And thank you, Susie. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And we love you.